Pierwszym mówcą będzie pan profesor Houde z Uniwersytetu na Florydzie i będzie mówić na temat personalistycznej psychologii. Witam Państwa serdecznie. Mam nadzieję, że Państwo mnie dobrze słyszą. Cieszę się ogromnie, że mogę tutaj przebywać. Dziękuję Ojcze Grzegorzu za to, że Ojciec mnie zaprosił. Chciałbym przedstawić tutaj trochę inną perspektywę i chciałbym wprowadzić nieco psychologii. Jest wśród nas kilku psychologów, więc mam nadzieję, że okaże się to dla Państwa interesujące. Chciałbym odnieść się do psychologii obecnej w pismach Karola Wojtyły. A zatem oto obraz, psychologia personalistyczna w pismach literackich Karola Wojtyły. Więc musimy, na pewno Państwo rozumieją Karola Wojtyłę, wiedzą Państwo, że potrzebna jest też wewnętrzna wiedza, oraz wiedza dotycząca tła powstawania jego dzieł literackich. Chcę powiedzieć Państwu kilka rzeczy, zwłaszcza w odniesieniu do trzech utworów wymienionych tutaj, dwóch ostatnich. I chciałbym też się odnieść do jego poezji. Mamy tutaj trzy główne zbiory poezji. Mamy też kilka wczesnych dzieł, które są dostępne tylko i wyłącznie w języku polskim. Część z nich też jest dostępna w Polsce oraz w Stanach Zjednoczonych. To jest bardzo
Very good. These are the four poem cycles that we'll focus on. I am going to be analyzing his poetry according to a personality psychologist from Joseph Rishlock is his name. And he says that psychology can be divided into, personality theories can be divided into these four areas. And these are the four areas: structure, motivation, development, and personality. I'll explain these more as we get into the various sections. Definitely, this is not cooperating. So the first topic is the mystery of persons. And within the play Job, we have very early on, Wojtyła is giving us this quote. This is 1940, okay? And he's already asking us anthropological questions. And what is man? And what is human might? And what is human happiness, right? So we have the big question about human nature, the mystery of the person, and we have some hints already about human motivation, right? What motivates us? What moves us in life? In Our God's Brother, the play, the introduction, we have this interesting kind of prelude from Wojtyła. This is in 1950, 10 years later. This will be an attempt to penetrate the man. We're talking about Adam Chmielewski, right? Again, the artist, the patriot who became an artist, who became a religious brother and a saint. But there is something inaccessible about individual human beings, right? So Wojtyła already has this sensitivity to the mystery of the human person early on. In Radiation of Fatherhood, we have this Adam, one of the characters who is an adoptive father, says this to his adoptive daughter, Monica: though I try to be transparent, I will also be a puzzle, right? So there is this kind of mystery quality about human beings. Just as an aside, Wojtyła seems in his plays to like the name Adam. In his last three plays, he uses this, right? One is Adam Chmielewski, a real historical character. In The Jeweler's Shop, he uses this to refer to the Father Confessor. particularly in Act 2. And then in Radiation of Fatherhood, Adam represents every man in the global sense, but then also a specific human, an adoptive father of a specific adoptive daughter. In Profiles of a Cyrenian, we have this other hint about the mystery of the human person, right? The wefts are deeply entangled. Try to untwist them, and you will unravel yourself. So do you have a sense in these early literary writings of Wojtyła of this sensitivity to the mystery of the human person? I find this magnificent and very beautiful. So let's speak a little bit about the uniqueness of the person. From Redeemer of Man, his first encyclical, we have this beautiful signature passage. Each one, right? Who does the church care for? Each man, each person in her unique, unrepeatable human reality. Each person's unique, unrepeatable, of incredible value. This word person in his works is used almost as short of God, a sacred term, right? Person, right? We know it comes from Trinitarian theology, but as applied to humans, person means something more, right? A particular richness and perfection, right, about humans. God's brother. We have the main character, Adam, speaking to the other. The other is an alter ego. It's a shadow of himself that he sees lit up, perhaps on the planti, right, by a lamppost. And he speaks. This is what he says. To his alter ego. He's having a conversation with himself, and he says, there is something more to this beggar by the lamppost, right? He's not just a beggar. There's something more to him, right? He is someone more special than this. Christ reveals man to man. This is another signature statement about anthropology, right? Christ reveals man. There's this passage. Anyways, he does. There's a passage in Redeemer of Man, right, that speaks to this. Radiation of Fatherhood. Adam, every man. This is right at the beginning of this play. Adam represents every man, and he's exiled from his deeper personality, right? He represents each of us, right? And he represents not just the masses, but each individual human person from the inside out. And he's challenged to explore the mystery of the person. He wants to find himself searching in every man, searching not from without, but from within. Right? Corpus Christi. On Grodzka Street. Each person, right, unique, unrepeatable, right? Adam is finding himself in each one. The dimensions of the person. So these are the 4 Richlock dimensions that I'd like to give you a sense of. First, structure or being. Richlock speaks about this. This means, what is our nature as a human being? What are we made up of, right? What's the stuff, if you will, of our existence and our faculties and our capabilities? One of the categories Wojtyła is very immersed in is body and soul, right? We see this in his Thomistic personalism, a human composite, right? The soul is the form of the body, hylomorphism, and the spiritual aspect and the corporeal aspect. He also speaks about faculties proper to each of these, right? So we have, again, appetitive faculties and simple intellectual faculties on the one hand, and then also particularly notably reason and free will on the other hand. So based on this, we see lots of things about body and soul in his poetry. In the Quarry, 1956, Zakjewek, about a 30-minute walk from here. A thought grows in me day after day. The greatness of work is inside man, right? So there's interiority. There's the mental aspect of work that contributes to, as part and parcel of the backbreaking labor of work in a stone quarry. Hands are the heart's landscape, right? The physical body, the interior heart, soul, mind. Not just hands drooping, right? A taut torso, muscle shaping, thought informing work, deep wrinkles on his brow, sharp arc in shoulders and veins, vaulted like a Gothic building cut by a vertical thought, sentenced to grandeur and error. Do you have the sense of this man doing backbreaking labor in a stone quarry, and yet he has a deep and rich interior life, right? It's compared to a Gothic building, right? A vaulted cathedral, almost immersed in the creases of the rock. Object and subject follow body and soul. The personalistic principle, right? The person can never be treated merely as an object of use, but the person is always a good. The only proper attitude is love. In Our God's Brother, we see this theme, the Studio of Destinies at the northwest corner of the Blanty. And we have two characters in the play, Our God's Brother, Stanisław and Max, who are conversing. And Max is saying, there resides in every one of us both an exchangeable man, an objective commodity in a sense, and a non-exchangeable man from the innermost depths known only to himself, right? Body and soul, subject and object. In Profiles of a Cyrenian, I've really come to appreciate this poem cycle. The car factory worker, right? It's like Christ is walking through the streets of Jerusalem. Let's make that the streets of Krakow or some other place in Poland, maybe Warszawa. And he is encountering people on the Via Dolorosa, right? Or on Grodzka Street. And in this case, the factory worker says, I'm not controlling things anymore, right? The cars stole my voice. The cars speak now. The machines are in charge. Is this AI precursor? Maybe, right? Is it these, the new model? That's the 1957 model. That's the year he wrote the poem. He talks about shiny new models. The jeweler's shop. Anna, the estranged and wounded wife, speaks about her estranged husband, Stefan. I did not want to feel like an object that cannot be lost once it has been acquired. Thought and consciousness, another theme. Interiority, thought, strange space, right? The caverns of the mind, if you will. Interiority. Do you recognize this place, anybody? It's a Smok's house over under the castle. Wrestling with images carried in our thoughts, right? This interiority, thoughts' resistance to words, right? Another poem, Space Necessary for Drops of Spring Rain. Thought places us deep in the luminosity of things. There's an ever-deepening space in ourselves. So we're talking about these themes about consciousness, right? And about awareness, right? Self-knowledge, self-awareness. We have some of these themes in his poetry. Not surprising. Emotion, intellect, and will. Again, Profiles of a Cyrenian. Man of emotion, right? We have suffering and enthusiasm, we have this relationship. It's not just the heart. It's not just sensations and passing emotions, but somehow emotion needs to move inward and discover will to be part of the person. We have man of intellect. It's possible, intellect, reason, yes, of course, this is good, but if it's sterile and cut off from emotion, then this can perhaps be problematic. We see some themes and hints of that here in this poem. And then man of will is also in the mix, but the computer's not cooperating with us on that. Man of will. One of the talks today talked about will as being a moment of decision. This is captured here in this poem of 1957. A moment of will, right? No place for heart and thought, only the moment exploding in me, the cross. Right? Some very beautiful passages. Freedom, truth, and conscience. Psychology, I love this passage as a psychologist. Psychology, the science of the soul, tries to lay bare the structure and foundation of man's inner life. The most significant characteristics are the sense of truth and the sense of freedom. So again, we have reason and will, right, and their functions. Conscience. Conscience is central to human development, so said Wojtyła in a 1972 retreat talk, right, I believe probably at St. Anne's University Chapel. In Profiles of a Serenian, the armaments factory worker. We know it, across the river, right? The armaments factory worker. Do I start wars? Conscience, this inner kind of conflict of conscience. No, I don't sin. I'm just putting screws together, right? Making things. I don't start the wars. But wait, what I create's not good. The world's evil. It's not mine. It's not my making. But is that enough, right? Conscience. Motivation, Rishalak dimension 2. Why do we do what we do? Are we motivated by lower things like drives and instincts? Or are we motivated by higher callings, right? Meanings, purposes, vocations, right? What moves us in life? What are our motives? Wojtyła gives us a very great passage in Veritatis Splendor, right? Do good, avoid evil. Here are some motives for humans. Preserve life, refine the riches of the world, cultivate social life, seek truth, practice good, contemplate beauty. We have 6 really good human motivations. These are good ones. These are high ones, right? Kind of cool to see this. But we also have within us this drama of motives, this fight between higher motives and lower motives. Right? We have this from person and act, this drama of human interiority, right? This drama of good and evil that occur in and through our acts. This elsewhere, he says, the drama of the will. It's a battle of motives, right? It's an interior struggle. In the jeweler's shop, we see some hints of this. The jeweler, the mystical jeweler, talks about multiplying the greatness of humanity by the weakness, right? The greatness and the weakness, the heights and the depths of human life. In the radiation of fatherhood, Adam says humanity has been filled to its upper limit or weakened to its lowest, right? The heights and the depths. The conflict of motives in us is reflected in this play. Freedom and truth, right? In Veritatis Splendor, the dependence of freedom on truth, right? Freedom of the will is possible only if it rests on truth in cognition. It is a man's duty to choose the true good. In the Jeremiah, the play, Jeremiah the prophet, voiced here by Wojtyła, speaks to Jehoiakim of Judah, and basically says, in truth, our freedom and excellence. In untruth, you go to slavery. He's writing this in 1940. Freedom and truth, right? These themes are present. Very, very amazing to me. Father Skarga repeats the same things to the Polish parliament and the king. Truth and love. One of his most often quoted passages, the first half, Gaudium et Spes 24:3, he speaks about this reality built into the universe and built into the heart and minds of humans is truth and love, right? Truth and charity. That's part of how we image the Trinity. Truth and love, right? In theology of the body. The mystery of truth and love, the economy of truth and love, the reality that's it's more real than an impersonal Darwinian universe. It's a universe that is literally filled with the reality of truth and love. It's as if Wojtyła is saying this. We'll try to get there. Freedom based on truth for the sake of love. These are the higher motives for humans. We have a will and we have reason and we have a conscience, right? We're made, we hunger to fulfill those things, right? So it's freedom based on truth, will and reason and conscience. But what's the point? It's goodness, and the ultimate goodness is love. We have it inscribed on the shrine, right? We don't have the word libertas there. I added that in. But we do have veritas and caritas, right? We could say we have freedom based on truth for the sake of love. Thank you, Cardinal Dziwisz, and all those who designed that good basilica. The necessity of love. Man cannot live without love, this famous line from Redeemer of Man. The jeweler's shop. The chorus witnessing the wedding of Andrew and Teresa, right? They acknowledge people thirst for intimacy, right? And then also Adam, the priest, the father confessor, to Anna in Act 2. You cannot live without love. You are calling with despair for a love that you do not have. Right? Man cannot live without love. Anger and love. Wait a minute, we're talking about higher motives. What about lower motives that are part of this conflict? I read this to my students and I ask them who said this. You already know because I've got the citation at the bottom. Wojtyła tells us the basic structure of human existence includes two basic instincts, self-preservation and the sexual instinct. Right? Self-preservation is necessarily egocentric. It's right to fight for one's life, for example. And the sexual instinct is in us. It points us, when properly directed, beyond ourselves, right? It's alterocentric, other-centered. So let's talk about the first one, self-preservation, anger in the quarry. This is a selection from two different poems within this poem cycle. Think about the hardworking quarry worker, forced labor under the Nazis. And in man grows the equilibrium, which love learns through anger. Anger has to become love. And then in the poem, in memory of a fellow worker who's killed at the work site, he says this: should his anger now flow into the anger of others, maybe his family? Should they carry vengeance forever? This anger was maturing in him through its own truth and love. Anger has to become love. In our God, and Wojtyła himself personally learned this, right, in the stone quarry. In Our God's Brother, did you know? We jumped ahead in the vaults of anger, right? I'm told that Lenin lived in this house for a couple of years, in these years, and one of the characters in Our God's Brother was this guy, Lenin, maybe in disguise. Some say it was him. Some say he's there. He's called the Stranger. And in the Stranger says this to Brother Adam, or Brother Albert: what matters is anger, great universal anger, human anger. Let's stir it up. Let's change the culture from anger. We know this theme. It's all around us. But Brother Albert meditates. He pauses. He says, not true. Here, anger fails. Here, charity is essential. This is true in helping the poor. It's true in resolving social conflict. Human motives, lower motives, need to become transformed into higher motives. Frenzy and love. We already talked about the instinct of self-preservation. Now let's talk about the sexual instinct, right? We know this is real, and it's a good. Wojtyła says right here, these are good. The sexual urge creates the basis for love, but it's not yet love. And it can possibly, other places, he says, it can become its opposite. So, but what about it? What about the sexual instinct? He says it needs to be integrated. It's not just about the body and the senses. That's exterior. But love is always interior. And when it stops being that, it ceases to be interior. It ceases to be love. In the jeweler's shop, the jeweler again speaks about this frenzy of freedom, this tangle, right? There's a frenzy aspect of the human sexual nature, but there's also freedom. And how do these are tangled in together? How do they get untangled, right? This is a beautiful, again, reflection, right? Is it when it comes to human sexuality, is it the frenzy of Scholl from the 19th century museum, the symbolist painting, or is it instead not Scholl, but Chagall? Right? We missed him. There we go. Is it Chagall? We're passing him up, trying to get there. There we go. Sorry, folks. You get it, right? So is it the Song of Songs? Is it mutual self-gift, right, instead, right? So we also have, again, another passage. The swift current of love is sometimes so stunning that it carries people away, right? The current is so swift, right? Sometimes it carries women and men away. Andrew to Teresa, as he's courting her in Act 1 of The Jeweler's Shop. Love can be a collision, even though they have no convenient moods or sensations. It's not just moods, it's not just emotions, it's not just sensations, right? It's a unity. It's more than just a collision, right? It's more than just a collision. Beauty accessible to the senses only can be difficult or dangerous. I learned to value beauty accessible to the mind. That is to say, truth, right? Gradually, he says, right? Gradually. Beauty accessible to the mind. Some students reading Act 1 of The Jeweler's Shop in front of a Krakowian jeweler's shop. Freedom and love. Freedom exists for the sake of love. What's the point of freedom? Love which springs from freedom as water from a rift in the earth. Freedom exists for the sake of love. Freedom is the source of genuine love. Again, the chorus in The Jeweler's Shop speaks about body and mind in love. Love becomes thought and will. Love becomes thought and will in a wedding in St. Anne's. The radiation of fatherhood. Loved, so we've talked about marriage, now we're talking about family, parenthood. We had some good talks on that earlier. Love denies, this is Adam, an adoptive father, traipsing in the beautiful Polish countryside with his adoptive daughter. I'm guessing 8-10 years old-ish. And they're talking about these kinds of things. And the adoptive father says to his adoptive daughter, love denies freedom of will to him who loves. Love liberates him from the freedom that would be terrible to have for its own sake. I am liberated from freedom through love. I'm freed from freedom through love when I learn to love as a father, as a parent. Right? And you see him traipsing through. Chochowowska, I think, is where this may be. Did I say it okay? Close? Okay? Development, number 3. You can tell me if you want me to stop, and I will stop, or we can continue. I'll go fast. Development. How do we grow and change across the lifespan? We have a personal history, a history of our life, a history of our soul. We write this, so says John Paul in Redeemer of Man. I love this passage. Being and becoming, right? He speaks of this in Theology of the Body. Who am I? Who am I called to become? What are the stages of life? He gives us stages of life. Apparently, we're not going to see them. There we go. All the way through infant, small child, school child, and so on, in a beautiful retreat talk on human development. And we see it in his poetry, poem cycle Mother, 1950. Right? There's a beautiful passage about a mother connecting with her son. In this case, it's Mary and Jesus. And she sees him eye to eye. She holds him. The significance of sight and touch for mother-child bonding is well known in psychology, right? This is an amazing passage, right? And so we have the mother that was given to Wojtyła after his mother passed, right? Our Lady of Kalvaria. Look at them, eye to eye. Pretty cool. In Profiles of Cyrenian, children, they grow up, they're young, and then they're holding hands by the river. They're not young anymore. They grow, right? They become young people and young adults. And then meditation on death, thoughts on maturing. There's this beautiful passage about the body and the soul, and we kind of get it. We like the idea of resurrection, but we're not sure we like the idea of death. And so there's some fear here, but maturity is within love, transforming fear. We have life cycle, lifespan, human development in his poetry. We have personal development. Each person's love story is a drama. It's unique to them. In the Radiation of Fatherhood, the mystical mother figure here says, people inhabit an earth that has two poles, not the north and the south. In this case, we're all on our way on a pilgrimage that leads us from the pole of loneliness to the pole of love, from the pole of self-centered preoccupation to the pole of mutual self-donation. Okay? So we have that. Earth's two poles. We have work. We have something there. We'll pass over it. We have art. John Paul says we're each called to craft of our life a work of art, a true masterpiece. We have plenty of analogies here about in the play Our God's Brother, about art giving us transforming ourselves. Adam Chmielewski, his art comes from his soul. He's not just making art to sell it and get stuff on a canvas. It comes from within. And a painting is capable of dissecting a man and transforming a man, right? Ecce homo, behold the man. And then we have some other profiles, which I guess in the interest of time, we will skip, and we will just reflect on the fact that as Adam Chmielewski took essentially 10 years to paint this, it changed him from within. It helped him discover his vocation, right? So who do we become? At the end of the day, do we become good or do we become evil? Wojtyła has passages on this, and we will meditate here on this last passage. I'll just leave it up, and we can call it good.